Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
How you doing, Dad?
I'm very well, Steve. Thank you. And it's lovely to speak to you again. I spoke to you yesterday in person, which was nice, and your lovely family. And it's nice to do it. It was absolutely beautiful. It was a lovely day. We enjoyed it all together. So there we are.
Yeah, we came down yesterday to see, because people that have done worked through our packs, the packs that you produced, would have seen that there's a Labrador in there, Jasper the Labrador, in our workshop packs. And if you've done that picture, then you would have known that it exists. And Jasper is, for those that don't know, Vicky, my sister, your daughter's dog, and unfortunately he is reached about 15 now, and he's going to pass away soon. So we made a quick last minute trip yesterday to come down and spend some time with him, because I haven't seen him in a while, and really pamper him for the day. And it was really lovely. It's sad, obviously, but it's really lovely to spend that time with him and to get that time with him. It's just expected now, isn't it? Any day now. So we're just sort of enjoying, and they're enjoying as much time as they can with him. That's why we came down. But it was a lovely day. We had a lot of good times. Yeah, it was lovely. So today we've got an email to answer and some advice to give that we thought might be interesting to our listeners and everyone else out there. And then we're also going to show a new picture, because I know that people are eagerly waiting to see what you've been up to. So first of all, let's show this picture. So we had an email come through from Jeff, and Jeff said, "Hi, Steve and Colin. My friends are over in Spain and have sent me this photograph that they took. I would love to try doing it in pastel pencils, but where do I start?" So I showed you this picture, Dad. I thought we could talk about it on the show. So we've got it in front of us. You've got it on screen, everyone that's watching this on Facebook or YouTube. It's a gorgeous picture. Tell me your thoughts about it, Dad.
Well, first of all, it's tricky because you've got a lot of foliage in the foreground. And although that's sometimes nice to have, especially from perspective point of view, if it obscures the subject, which it does, it's not really an ideal picture to do. However, what I've done is I've edited it, and I've sent that to you, and we can show that in a moment. But let me first of all explain what I would do. The first thing I would do here, having drawn that out in the I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about the foliage. That can all be done with artistic license is the best way. Don't ever try to copy foliage. It doesn't work. It becomes too stilted. So what you've got to do really is look at it and think, okay, these are the colours I need, and this is the general idea that I want to produce. So I'm going to do it in my own way. The difficulty, of course, is that you're putting it on top of other colours. You're going to have to do a sky, you're going to have to do the building, and if you want the foliage to superimpose against that building, which you're going to have to do, I think, in this case, you've got to be prepared to perhaps leave certain sections. It depends on what paper you're using. If you're using pastel matte, it's a little easier because you can put light on top of dark or dark on top of light. You can put more colours on top. So that's my first thought. And the next thing we've got to talk about is, where do you start? Well, I would always start with the sky. I would put that in, and you'd have to think. You'd have to draw the picture out, and the building would have to be fairly prominent in the picture. It's difficult. Again, it depends on paper you're using and the colour of the paper you're using. I wouldn't suggest you use the dark paper for this, because any picture that requires a lot of architecture, you really do have to use graphite rather than the, if you were using a dark grey pastel or any dark colour paper, you're going to have to use the white trace down, and that doesn't come out very well if you're looking at very detailed work. So that's what I would do. You'd have to use a lighter paper. And then I would draw it out as best you can. It's quite complicated. I'm not sure I would do it if it was me, because it's something that, you know, you get halfway through it and think, have I taken up, you know, more than I can chew? But anyway, my idea is you do the sky first, then you do the building, and then finally you would do the foliage and that on. Now, what I've done for this picture is I've edited it and taken away some of the foliage, which he'll bless me for, I tell you. And if you show that picture now, the edited version, you'll see that I've cut down the picture, but I haven't taken any of the building away. I've left that. And of course the sky, well, the sky, you can't copy a sky, you've got to make that blue. What I would do there, because you're not looking at a lot of sky, I would just make it a blue sky. I wouldn't try to put clouds in, because that's going to complicate it. You've got so much detail in there, you wouldn't need it. And then I wish you all the best of luck for that. It's quite detailed. The picture itself would be an A4-ish, well, it would be a portrait style picture. And the way I've edited that, you'll find it would fit onto an A4 picture quite well. I would probably do it on A4 rather than try to do it too small, because you wouldn't get the detail in. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I hope that people have found that interesting, because it's a gorgeous picture, but I wouldn't have thought of all of those problems that you might encounter when trying to do it. And certainly by cropping it in, you're definitely making it easier on yourself. So there you go, Jeff. Gives you an idea of what you can do, or what Dad would do. So yeah, I hope that's interesting, and thanks very much for sending it over, and let us know, obviously, how it goes and how you get on. We'd love to see it finished. Okay, fab. Okay, let's move on to a new picture that you did a few weeks back now, because we haven't spoken about any new pictures that you've done for a little while. So let's pop up this beautiful picture on screen that literally I made me gasp when you sent it to me. Mims was next to me and she just heard me go, because I haven't seen you do, well, not quite like this. I've not seen you do material like this. So let's talk about it, Dad. Obviously what attracted you to this picture was, I assume, that sheer material curtain coming out.
And the window and the light was absolutely fantastic. The picture itself, the vase that's there, or vase, was flowered. It had white flowers all over it. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to do that. So that's what put me off to start with. I thought, I'm not going to do those. And then I thought, hang on, the background colour, which is the blue and the whites in it, and I thought that's very attractive. Why don't I do it a plain vase rather than flowers? And because I would never have got through all those flowers, they would have driven me nuts. So I got rid of those and made it a plain vase, which I'm very pleased I did. And it was the net curtains which really attracted me. Now, I had that picture for quite a while before I decided that I would like to try it, because I kept thinking about it and well, how am I going to do it? In fact, sometimes I do think quite a lot, you know, probably a few hours, I would think, in terms of over a period of a few days when I'm looking at something. And I realised how I actually could do it. I'd worked it out in my head how it could be done. And I followed that completely. I had, as I say, I mapped it out, planned it out, and followed what I thought would be the right thing. And it turned out to be absolutely right. But what I was interested in, really, is something different. I wanted to do, and as you know, I've been looking at different pictures, and by golly, I've done a few. Since then, I've done a couple more. What I'm doing at the moment is really different. It's something I've never done anything like it before. That's what I like to do, because I think it moves people on, it moves me on, it moves the members on. And this is how it was with that. So what you're going to ask me is, how on earth did you do the net?
Exactly, yes.
Well, this comes back to, if you remember in the past, I've done sheer garments on a lady, particularly an arm. I remember I did the first one. And how am I going to do an arm? Do you do the arm and then do you put the white or the colour of the net on the outside over the top? That won't work. Doesn't work at all. So what you have to do in a situation like that is you put the white or the light colour on first, and then you put the arm in it. Do you know what I mean? And what that does, amazingly, it gives you the impression that the net's over the arm. In fact, the arm's over the net. And it's the same with the wall behind. That colour and the window and the framework and the brickwork around there was all done on top of the whites and the greys. That was there first. Obviously you've got to draw it out. You've got to have no way of going with it. And that's how that was done. And I was absolutely amazed at how it actually turned out. But you see what I mean? You have to work this out in advance. You can't just start it and think, oh, because halfway through you think, this isn't going to work. It's not working. You can't do that. You've got to make sure before you start a picture, just like Jeff's picture, that we were talking about earlier, you've got to think about that, work it out, and draw, if you can, from past experiences. Now, I know people that are starting out don't have those experiences, but when you have got experience and you've tried different media, it also helps too if you don't stick to one subject. I mean, if I hadn't done portraits, I wouldn't have been able to do that picture. Do you know what I mean? Because the portrait work helps you to understand the mechanics and the techniques you need. So that's how that was done.
It just looks so complicated. There's such a vast area. It's not just this is like, when you've done an arm, it's just the arm maybe that you're seeing, but this, you've got a whole windows frame, windowsill, window, like this is so much to it. It looks so complicated. It looks like the super difficult version of the arm over the shear.
It wasn't as hard as you think it was for me. It would be very hard for somebody else trying it because they wouldn't have had that experience and probably wouldn't have been able to work it out like I did. But one of the things you'll see that if you look at the bottom left part of the picture, where the net doesn't touch, and look at the net is flying, it doesn't touch that part, that's a stronger colour. So that didn't have any of the white or the grey that I put on. That went on raw. And that's what gives you that contrast between the area that hasn't been, you're not seeing through it, and the area you are. You see what I mean? You've got that. And that's the bit that I really enjoyed doing, funny enough. I enjoyed that contrast between the darker or the stronger tones, which would be natural because it's no interference, and then you've got the net that's laying across it. And then, of course, the other thing you've got is the folds in the net. You notice those too?
Yeah.
They're put on afterwards. After you've put the net in, the colours in the net in, and you've worked all that out, then you put the brickwork and the framework of the window and the area in the window itself. You put that in, and then on top of that, then you put the lights back on again. So you've got the 3 levels of doing it.
Wow.
Yes, I'm sure that's put everybody off doing it.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it does sound, I mean, you make it sound easy in terms of you just do this, you do that, but obviously there is so much involved with that color selection process and application and weight of what you're putting on and everything like that. But it really is a beautiful picture, and it is nothing like anything I've seen you do before. So I think that is very exciting. So yes, look out for that, everyone. I know we've got a lot of projects to add, which we are working our hardest to get them edited, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be wanting that one to be jumped up the list because it is so beautiful.
When I sent it to you, I had to say this is an advanced picture. Now, probably that's obvious, but it is a super advanced picture. Anybody who's starting out, any starters or even intermediate people, really could have a go at it, but don't put your expectations too high. I mean, I do explain. This is the lovely thing about this. I show people how it's done. It's not just me talking about it here, because if it was that, no one would ever get it done. But when you see me actually doing it, you can see and understand how that actually does work.
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. Well, a very impressive piece. I hope people are looking forward to seeing that. I hope they like it. As always, people can get in touch with us, send us their emails, get in touch with Facebook, YouTube, all of that stuff, and keep fueling this show with your questions. And we'll also be talking more about some other pictures that you've done in recent times, perhaps next week or the week after. But for now, we'll leave it there for this week. Thank you, Dad, and thank you everyone for listening and watching. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Enjoy your week.